This is the agenda for today. We are going to have our Dhamma learning mindset. Then we'll discuss about how to overcome repetitive intrusive thoughts. And we'll end with aspiration. Let's have our Dhamma learning mindset together. I like to learn Dhamma. I learn Dhamma well. I enjoy learning Dhamma. I am happy learning Dhamma. Learning Dhamma is the only thing I am focused on at this moment. Phya Tabe Ro Di Dhamma Go Lolo Jin Jin Tin Yu Java Gong E. Li Nat Kao Mon Swa Tin Yu Java Gong E. သင်ယူခြင်း၌မွေးလျော်နှစ်ချိုက်ကြပါကုန်၏သင်ယူခြင်း၌ပျော်ရွှင်ကြပါကုန်၏လေးလာသင်ယူခြင်းတစ်ခုတည်း၌သာမိမိတို့၏စိတ်ကိုတည်ထားစူးစိုက်ကြပါကုန်၏All right, so our today's topic is how to overcome repetitive intrusive thoughts. All right, so let's first talk about what are intrusive thoughts. Anybody like to volunteer? What is the meaning of intrusive thoughts? William.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Anybody? Macy?
Thoughts that you don't want.
Okay, very good. So thoughts that you don't want. Okay, so let's talk about what intrusive thoughts are first. Okay, so now intrusive thoughts are the thoughts that are usually come into your mind that you don't want. They may or may not be positive or negative. A lot of time, do you think they are positive or do you think they're negative? Andrew?
I think negative.
Negative. So usually intrusive thoughts are most of the time, they are negative. Yes, sometimes they could be positive. Okay, it's a great thing. But a lot of time when we talk about intrusive thoughts, they are negative thoughts. What are the examples of intrusive thoughts which are negative? Have you ever had any intrusive thoughts? The thoughts that come to your mind, they're negative. No matter what you do, they keep on coming back. It may not be all the time, but you have had moments where the thoughts keep on coming back to you and they're negative. Have you ever had anything like that? Yeti? You have heard of people having those kind of thoughts? You haven't had those kind of thoughts? That's good. So how negative is negative? Okay, we'll talk about that. Let's see. All right. So the intrusive thoughts can be anything. So let's look at this picture. So let's look at this guy. You all know this movie, right? What's this movie? Kevin, what's this movie?
The movie is called Inside Out.
Inside Out, right. So here, I don't know the name of this character. What is he describing here? What do you think's happening here? What are his feelings? Can anyone name any of these guys' feelings? All right, let's start with the easy one. Who's this guy? What is happening to him? He is angry, right? What about this girl, Jackson. What do you think she is feeling right now?
She is feeling happy.
She's feeling happy. All right. What about this one? Andrew.
I'm sad.
She's feeling sad. Okay. What about this? Rolling her eyes up and whatever. Disgusted, right? And this is Sarah. What do you think happened to this guy?
He's scared.
He's scared, right? So the intrusive thoughts could be scary thoughts, angry thoughts, depressing thoughts, disgusting thoughts. Well, once in a while, maybe happy thoughts. Well, if it is happy thoughts, that's great. But if it is a fear or anger or depression or disgusting, are they good? No, they're not good. Have you ever had any occasion where someone was mean to you and said something to you, and that word keeps on coming to you for quite a long time? Maybe for a day or two or a week. Have you ever had anything like that? No? That's all right, William. Could you share us what kind of experience you had like that?
Can I rather not share?
Sure, yeah, that's okay. Okay, but I'm glad that at least you're honest that, hey, I had that kind of experience when someone was mean to me and said something. Sometimes it might not even be they're mean to you, but you felt like it. It could be your mother, it could be your father, it could be your teacher or your brother, your friend. They are great people. It could be one of your best friend, okay, accidentally says something. Then it hits your heart very deeply. And that word or that gesture doesn't go on for quite a long time, right? Now, that thought, whenever it comes back to you, those are intrusive thoughts, okay? So those could be fear. Those could be anger. They can give you fear. They can give you anger. They can make you depressed. They can make you disgusted. But whatever coming back to you is happy. That's great. But a lot of time, when we say intrusive thoughts, we talk about the negative thoughts. Okay. All right. So here are the common ones. All right. So let's see. Sarah, read this one for me.
I'm going to do something inappropriate or embarrassing.
Okay. Maybe most of you haven't had things like this, but when intrusive thoughts come to someone, it sometimes is weird. It is just that you know you shouldn't, but you kind of like there's a strong urge inside you that you really want to do it. Okay. So it's inappropriate. I shouldn't have used that word, but I really want to, and it is itching inside you. Okay. So, all right. So, Kevin, read this for me. Thoughts of doing?
Thoughts of doing something violent.
Thoughts of doing something violent. Sometimes you just want to be wild and a beast. Have you ever felt like that? Not really. All my students in this class are great, gentle people, right? Yeah, Yeti said it all depends on the situation. So sometimes it is inside you telling you that, oh, I want to do this, even though you know you shouldn't, right? Thank you, Kevin. All right. So This one. Andrew, read this for me. Getting stuck.
Getting stuck on negative self-talk.
Getting stuck on negative self-talk. Can you give me an example of what it mean by that?
Like criticizing yourself.
Right. Give me an example. How do you criticize yourself negatively? Can you?
I'm dumb. I can do way better.
Right. Sometimes it kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm worthless. Or I can't do this. I can't even do this. It's not that anyone told you, it's just your inner feeling. Kept on thinking like that. Okay, that is the negative self-talk. All right, similar to thoughts of being a failure or burden. Oh, I'm a loser. Or I'm a burden for my friend. I'm a burden for my family. Okay, I'm sure none of you have felt like that at this point. Thoughts of leaving house unlocked or an appliance on. Those are kind of like, maybe a lot of you haven't got that yet, but those of you sometimes feel like, oh, I think I forgot to close the door. Maybe I didn't turn off the faucet. Oh, did I turn off the gas or the fire or the AC? Now, that happens to a lot of adults, okay? Thoughts of hurting yourself or others. Hopefully none of you feel this way either, okay? Flashbacks to bad memory, okay? Thoughts of crashing your car, okay? Thoughts of doing something illegal, okay? Inappropriate thoughts of sexual images. Now, some of these, you haven't experienced it because you're young, you're sincere, you're pure. Some of these, you thought about it, came to your mind. All right. Now, if these thoughts keeps on coming back to you again and again and again, they are called intrusive thoughts. Okay. So William said he had some kind of experience like that. Anyone else has any other experience? Something intrusive thoughts? You don't have to share. I just want to see if you had it. Raise your hand. No one? That's good. Okay. So sometimes if you have those kind of thoughts, stress, anger, any type of negative feeling, a lot of time you may not even know that you have those, but it shows it in your body, okay, as tics, called mental tics, right? Let's listen to this goal.
Hi everyone, in this video today I'm going to be discussing mental tics and intrusive thoughts. Now, mental tics and intrusive thoughts are slightly similar, however I do believe that there is a difference between them, because I believe mental tics are a lot more random than intrusive thoughts. They are tics of the mind, whereas intrusive thoughts tend to be something that triggers anxiety and distress in the individual, and an intrusive thought is usually ego dystonic, meaning that it's what the individual is most against, and it may fuel compulsions if somebody is afraid that it means something about them, or worried that it may happen, or they may act on it or something. Whereas with a mental tic, it is pretty much completely random, but it is very repetitive, which can still be incredibly frustrating. Now, with a mental tic, people may have repetitive words and phrases in their mind, and that can be anything really. one of my mental tics was spinach. I would just think spinach, spinach over and over again for absolutely no reason. And of course, it wasn't me doing it, it was just popping into my mind. And if I was stressed, it would come out as a vocal tic. But for the most part, it was just in the mind. And I've had a few words and phrases that have been in my mind on loop for no reason. And I also had another one, which was numbers. I would have a constant stream of random numbers with no actual sequence. I wrote them down, but all day just constant numbers in my mind. No sequence. My brain was basically just regurgitating random things. But it can also be random sounds in the mind or songs. So for me, I had an incident where my stream of thought pretty much, well, I had 7 streams of thought. Basically, it's split. And on one of those streams of thought, it was very loud, but I had sound crashes, and this wasn't an auditory hallucination because I didn't actually hear it, and I knew it wasn't real, but it was still in the mind, and it seemed loud to me. And also songs. I had a mental tic where just one loud part of a song would come into my mind, and it almost sounded like it was shouting. It was so loud. Because that was the thing with mental tics. People say that thoughts seem the same volume, but with a mental tic, it was very, very sudden and loud. But yes, some people also have coproskepsia, which is where they may have coprolalia, which is the swear words in their mind. And for me, I had that. It was the C word in my mind on loop for no apparent reason. And with a mental tic, sometimes usually it does come into your head very randomly. You don't even know you're going to do it, but sometimes it's almost like you're using your inner voice to say it as a tic, which is really weird. Sometimes I'd feel like I'm relieving a sort of urge in my mind. It's very, very strange. But usually, for the most part, it was just very random. And some people also have echoskepsia, which is where they may, in their mind, repeat what somebody has said to them, not in a ruminating sense, but just literally just what the person said is now stuck in their head and they can't get it out. And some people may also have intrusive thoughts. As I was saying, intrusive thoughts are different as they're usually egotonic, what the person's most against, and they provoke anxiety and distress. And an intrusive thought can include something like visions of bad things happening, or visions of harm coming to the people you love or yourself. And intrusive thoughts are usually linked with a compulsion, although not always. You can have intrusive thoughts without compulsions, but they are still very distressing. And sometimes people may have intrusive thoughts, can be worries or questions which they feel need to do something about or answer and ruminate about. Sometimes they can be fears, you're scared something may happen. And I also had an intrusive thought which was opposite thinking, where I would look at something and think the opposite of what I believed or what I wanted to think, and it was everything I looked at. For example, every time my friend messaged me, it would think something horrible about my friend, which obviously I didn't agree with. And sometimes if I saw somebody outside, it would think something horrible about them when I wouldn't really believe that. So it's basically everything I looked at, it would think the opposite of what I really believed. And it takes your inner voice, so it makes you sound like you're a horrible person, but of course it's not, because it's the intrusive thought pretending to be you. And there's also, sometimes people may have intrusive thoughts that sound like there's someone else in your mind, and this is, again, different to any sort of hallucination or delusion, because we know that it's false and that it is just in the mind. However, it can sound like there's somebody else in the mind saying horrible things sometimes, so that can be some sort of intrusive thought. Sometimes people may have, if it's OCD related, people may have the compulsion to argue with it. Other times it can just seem like there's someone in your mind yelling horrible things, but it can be very strange. Now, in terms of mental tics, the problems with mental tics is, of course, it's incredibly frustrating to have something in your mind on loop that you can't get out, and it can also make it a struggle to think for yourself. If you're trying to think about something, it keeps getting interrupted, or it can be a struggle to focus on things like reading. If you're trying to read but your mind's just saying these things on loop, it's kind of impossible to focus, and also it affects auditory processing, so it's very difficult to listen to what's actually going on around you because your mind is just constantly on loop with this, and it's very difficult to listen to what's going on around you, really. But some of the ways to manage mental tics can be listening to music, because it kind of drains it out and the music is in the forefront and you can kind of stop focusing on the mental tics. And sometimes distraction can help. For me, I remember when I was about 15 years old, having a distraction, like for example, I would go and find a CD, something as simple as that, like a little chore, just to go get me to do something to distract me from it. So keeping busy can help, and also talk to others. Like when I'm being social or doing something that I'm focused on, especially speaking, then mental tics drain out. And also keeping your blood sugars up. I found that if I eat little and often, then the mental tics and intrusive thoughts actually decrease. So blood sugar for me does seem to play a role, so it may for somebody else as well. I hope this video is helpful. I know it's short, but please comment your experiences down below or anything that you may want to add. And thank you for watching. Bye!
All right, so we have been talking about intrusive thoughts. But sometimes just the repetitive thoughts or desire that you want to do, right? So some people tends to have a lot more to a point that that become a problem for them. Now that's how people with tics started, all right? Some people, some kids will have some symptoms that they have to move one part of their body. They have to say certain words. Now, that can actually carry on for their whole life. I had an elderly neighbor when I was young. Now, that lady has echolalia. Now, started with this kind of thought. So, if you go and touch her side and say something, she will repeat that like 200 times without stopping it. When I was young, it was a very funny thing. So a bunch of kids, including myself, would go to her house and we would do that, and we had a lot of fun. Of course, we were mean, but we didn't know. So the little stress that we have, okay, when we were young, sometimes tends to carry on, right? Now, we're going to take a look at what are the causes of intrusive thoughts. What do you think brings on the intrusive thoughts to people? Anybody know about this picture? Michelle? Kathleen? Anybody ever seen this picture? What do you see in the picture? Leonardo.
I see a dog in the water being followed by two baby ducks.
Yeah, the dogs in the water being followed by two baby ducks. So do you think the ducks are following the dogs for a reason? Or it's just a photo without any meaning? Sarah, what do you think?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Okay. All right. So normally the ducks are supposed to. All right, Zach. Go ahead, Zach.
I think I have something. I think the ducks are like the intrusive thoughts that are following the dog's mind, like it's annoying the dog over and over, and the dog can't get it out.
Okay. All right. So pretty close, but not quite. We are going to talk about it. So we're going to talk about how intrusive thoughts can come to us. Okay. Sometimes it is very, very strange. So we're going to look at a little causes of the intrusive thoughts. So one of the famous one is called mental imprinting. So you all know what imprint means. Imprint means that is like something casted into a metal or die, and it lasts forever. Now, something can happen into your mind and it will imprint on your mind that it will not go out of your mind for quite a long time, or it is very difficult to get rid of. Okay. Sometimes it could be fear making you to have that repetitive, intrusive thoughts again and again and again. Sometimes it could be a simple stress because you're having a test. Okay, because someone yell at you, because your parents told you something that you don't want to do or you don't like, right? Sometimes it could be your hormones doing it. Okay, so we're going to talk about these. So let's first look at what a mental imprinting is. Okay.
These ducks were raised on a farm where they hatched by the thousands in large incubators. Born in a drawer, you might say, where they see neither their parents nor any other adult ducks. Does this situation affect their behavior? Do they still show the need for a parent? To find out, behavioral scientists developed a series of experiments. Fertilized duck eggs are put in cardboard cylinders and placed alone in incubators where each is completely isolated from all light and sound. About 10 hours later, the bird gets its bearings and makes what sounds like a distress call. On wobbly legs, it seems to look for something, even though there's virtually nothing to see in the experiment's featureless environment. At least, not yet. But a mechanical toy is about to enter the picture. Watch what happens when the duckling discovers its first moving object. The duck shows no fear. On the contrary, as it watches the toy's movements, it stops making distress calls and begins a calm peeping. In this time-lapse sequence, notice how the duck gradually develops a behavior pattern. After just minutes of exposure, the duck eagerly approaches and follows the toy everywhere, just as it would normally follow its own parent. It peeps contentedly, seems completely at ease, and willingly accepts the toy, as well as an unexpected piggyback ride. Is the duck's acceptance also attachment or dependence? To find out, the toy is removed. There's no doubt about it. The duck sounds the distress call and searches for the object. When it returns, so does calm peeping. Apparently, the duck has adopted the toy as its parent. Does the color, sound, or texture of a toy affect the experiment? To find out, it's repeated with a different object and a second duckling. Again, the duck is 10 hours old and the toy the first object it's seen. And again, the animal peeps contentedly, approaches, follows, and responds to the toy as it would to a parent. Duckling 3, Experiment 3. The first two used toys that made sounds. To see if sound is significant, this experiment uses a silent toy. Though the balloon is silent, the duck's behavior is the same. Duck meets object. Duck follows object. Duck adopts object. And gets mighty upset when the object disappears. Again, the duck searches for the object. When it returns, there's no question that the duck recognizes it on sight. What if the object isn't a toy at all, but a rabbit minding its own business? Well, here comes duckling number 4, fresh from isolation. What will happen when it meets the seemingly skeptical cottontail? Another time-lapse sequence gives the answer. Despite the rabbit's initial reluctance, the duckling prevails, and in the process repeats the behavior pattern shown in the first 3 experiments. The pattern can be observed with almost any object, be it live or mechanical, noisy or silent, regardless of shape. When it's the first moving thing a duckling sees, the duck approaches, follows, recognizes, and soon depends on the object as it would on a parent. This behavior pattern is what's meant by the term imprinting. To Konrad Lorenz, who first observed it, imprinting proved that while ducks seek a parent by instinct, they come to recognize one only through learning. Lorenz also found that imprinting has limits. This duck is not 10, but 30 hours old. Watch the result as it meets the mechanical mutt from experiment 1. Would you call this approach, following, attachment? Hardly. The 30-hour duck wants nothing to do with the toy, so this experiment's result is the direct opposite of the first one's, even though all that differs is the age of the duck. What happens if we try it again with a different toy and another 30-hour duck? Scared? You bet. These experiments show that imprinting must occur during a certain time span, or it won't happen at all. The span is called the critical period. It begins 3 hours after birth and ends at about 30 hours. At a peak age of about 16 hours, a duck will imprint more easily and quickly than at other times during the critical period. Once imprinting has occurred, will it last? This real duck has firmly imprinted the mechanical one. The two are color-coded. and the duckling joins some others that have been exposed only to each other. Watch what happens 24 hours later. Even after a day, the duckling recognizes the toy. Not only does the imprint last, but appears every bit as strong as it was 24 hours before. And notice what's happened to the rest of the brood. Having been together throughout the critical period, they've imprinted each other. Once a duck has imprinted one toy, will it shift its preference to another? To find out, a second duck gets a necktie. So does a third. Once again, watch what happens after 24 hours when ducks and objects are reunited. The result is clear. Each duck has formed a detailed enough image of its own toy to remember and distinguish it from the others. The learning that results from imprinting is not only lasting and firm, but astonishingly precise. What happens in the laboratory also occurs in nature. Newborn ducks seek and follow the first moving object they see, which usually happens to be their mother. Within hours of birth, the ducklings have a firm attachment to her and a lasting, precise image of how she looks. They keep her in sight, assuring themselves food, warmth, protection, and a guide back to the nest. Imprinting has also been seen in other animals that can walk soon after birth. To scientists, imprinting is important as a link between instinct and learning. As for the animals themselves, it's a behavior that helps ensure their very survival.
All right, so now you understand what imprinting is. So that's only for the animals at this point. And do you think that happened to us human beings? Stella?
Yes.
Yeah. What is the age limit that could happen to us, to human being, the imprinting? Guess.
I honestly don't know.
Very good. Okay. All right. So, all right. Who raised the hand? From the temple, go ahead.
What if the duck, once it got once it was connected, imprinted to that, let's say to the balloon, and then it got reunited with its actual mother, what would happen?
So in fact, the duck thought that the balloon is the mother.
The dog doesn't know what mother is.
So actually, the scientists have done the similar experiment with two groups of dogs. So they hatched two groups of eggs, and as soon as the eggs are hatched, one group allowed to follow the mommy duck, and the other group they did not allow to follow the mommy duck. Instead, they allowed them only to follow a dog. That's where you saw that picture. So those dogs who are exposed only to the dog thought that the dog is their mother. In fact, the scientist that you saw, he actually observed that because he had a bunch of ducks that he hatched at home, and the baby ducks were following him. And he got the idea, hey, why are these little ducks following me? Okay, so that's how he found out about the imprinting. Okay, now it can happen to us. It does happen to us. And more interestingly, in fact, it happens to us in different stages of our life with different things. Okay, so we're going to talk about that.
Will the effects last even though they're adults?
Yes, we'll talk about that. Okay. So definitely it happened to us when we were little, right? A lot of kids had what we call separation anxiety. How many of you had it that, or maybe how many of your parents told you that when you were young, you didn't let me lose sight from your room, and the moment that I left you, you started crying? Or you want to see at least your mommy or daddy, if the moment that you don't see them, you started crying. Any experience like that when you were little? Kevin? Okay. Anyone else? No? The rest of you? Okay. All right. So it might not happen to some of you. It does happen usually. Okay. So now that's definitely one we were young. Now, similar imprinting happened when you have a very first love. Of course, most of you are young and you probably don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend yet. Now, the chemistry, the scientists have studied the chemistry happened when the couples or the girls or the boy have the very first love. Okay. Now, what happened is very similar to imprinting. At that moment, they call it gut hormone or and the chemical name or medical name called oxytocin released in the body. It's a sudden huge surge of that chemistry. Now, there are other hormones. Some of the hormones you probably heard about it before, like serotonin, dopamine, those released, make you feel good together with this chemical called oxytocin. Okay, make you have something very similar to the same imprinting that the ducks had or you had when you were little. So when you were little, if you had imprinting on your mommy or on your daddy or both, or it could be your grandma or grandpa, or it could be your nanny. If you don't see any one of those, you feel jittery inside and you start crying. Now, when you have the first love, your very first boyfriend or girlfriend, there's a good chance that that kind of imprinting will happen again. Because of these hormones, there are several hormones, but commonly those are three, right? The serotonin and the dopamine, but serotonin and dopamine are the ones that make you feel good. But this hormone called oxytocin is more so common in the first love. Look at the way that she looks at the boy. And there will be a sudden surge of high amount of oxytocin. And something very similar to imprinting happen again in your life. All right. Of course, Nobody knows whether that will happen to you at the age of 12 or 15 or 16 or 18 or 25. It's up to your chemistry. We don't know, right? But when that happened, what are the chances that this girl will think about the boy all the time? Miranda. What will happen to her? What will she be thinking most of the time?
The boy.
Yeah, right. So because of the effect of that chemistry, that girl will be having that imprint. So that's why you will hear all these songs. Everywhere I look, I see the girl or I see the boy. Because you have that imprinted in the memory. So his or her figure doesn't go away. Close your eyes. You see the girl or you see the boy. Look around. His or her image is on the walls, right? You hear his voice all the time, right? You hear that him or her calling your name all the time, or the conversation you had. That's also a type of imprinting, but this time is because of this oxytocin, right? Of course, this is a great thing. You feel great, right? Sometimes it could be negative too, right? Okay, go ahead, Doc. Is it Thomas?
Is the effect also the same as like best friends or like close friends?
Yes, that could happen, but it may not be that strong. You are absolutely right. So it could happen with one of the very best friends that you ever had. Let's say you are very lonely and suddenly you got a very, very good friend. He listens to you, he plays with you, he say, oh, I like you, I like the game you play, I like what the book that you're reading. You kind of click together. Now, that moment, okay, you release some type of hormone and that could imprint. All right. Now, of course, that is nothing related to sexual preference or anything. It could be one of your best friends. But the same thing, when that friend ever leave you or move out of the town, then you feel really, really sad. You feel like your world is gone and you feel like that's the end of the world. Okay, so that can happen to you. So that imprinting is one of the causes of those intrusive thoughts. Sometimes it could be positive, sometimes it could be negative, right? Now, for example, the love at first sight, great. But what if the boy ever leaves her? She'll be in big trouble, right? She cannot help thinking about him. She cannot help seeing his images. She cannot help getting the smell of his body or whatever that imprinted in her mind. Okay. All right. So what does Buddha talk about it? When you have that kind of thought, right? It could be a negative word that your father told you, right? And your father kind of regretted, oh, I shouldn't have said that to my son, to my daughter. All right. But that word, even though your father's, honey, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But that word kept on coming to you and haunt you. All right. Or it could be your friend, it could be your teacher, it could be your best friend. Right. Now, those kind of thoughts, the repetitive thoughts, a lot of times you know they're useless. You know that you shouldn't. But that thoughts keep on coming to you. Sometimes those thoughts are very, very bad thoughts. Right? Sometimes it could be just playing a bad game, a killing game that you know as good as you shouldn't. You know your parents don't like it. You know your teacher doesn't like it, but you just can't resist. You just want to keep on playing that game because that image of the game keeps on coming to you. To the point that if you cannot play that game, you get all these tics that we just talked about, right? Your body's twitching, right? Or you're going to shake your legs because you feel jittery and you need something. Okay, so what is the polyword for that repetitive thought? We have talked about this before. The polyword is called vitaka. Okay, so vitaka is the repetitive thought. We all have it. Okay, 99.99% of the time, we don't know it. Okay, only one, they become negative to you, you notice it. But we thought about things all the time. You thought about your friends right now while you're listening to me, your mind wander, you suddenly think about your school, your friend. Suddenly there's a sound from your phone coming from Snapchat, little that ding sound. Oh, now you suddenly think about, oh, that must be hard, text to me. So our mind has a lot of vitaka. Okay, we just don't know it. Now, once those vitaka become harmful, negative, how do we handle that? All right, when you have that bad imprinting, just because of a trauma you had when you were little, or just because of the hormones and chemistry, or your boyfriend or girlfriend, or someone who power you, could be your father or your mother or your teacher. Now, somehow negatively impact you, and you have this negative vitaka or negative repetitive thoughts. How do we handle it? What do we do? Now, I want to pause here a little bit. If you ever had any negative thoughts, repetitive thoughts, I want to know. And I also want to know how you handle it. Go ahead, Yeti. You don't handle it or you don't have it? Okay, you did saying that. How do you handle it? You just let it happen. Okay, so sometimes those thoughts are not that negative. They're just a little bit dark, and you just let it happen. Might be okay. But sometimes those thoughts could be very, very negative, right? Some of those people, they thought about committing a crime. They thought about breaking the law. They thought about doing something weird, okay? So then in that case, oh my goodness, I know I shouldn't, but that kind of thought keeps on coming to me. How do we do it? All right. So, and it is very hard, right? Especially if you start noticing some tics, like your body is jerking, right? Then, there's something abnormal in you. And it's also showing on your body, right? Then what do we do? So let's look at what Buddha said. Now, we have discussed about these 5 R's before, right? In a different approach. Now, this 5 R's, we talked about this probably about maybe 5-6 months ago. Now, what I want you to understand here is the Buddha's teaching can be applied in so many different ways. Now, we're going to apply this sutta in managing the unwholesome vitaka or unwholesome repetitive thoughts. Now, that sutta, the Vitaka Santana Sutta. Now, Jackson, could you read number 1 and 2 for us?
Repel, clench the teeth, subdue, and beat down the evil. Number 2, refrain, neglect and forget about it by making your mind and body occupied with wholesome and unbusy work.
All right. We'll read number 3 and 4 for us.
Root, find the cause. 4, reflect on consequences, disadvantages, danger, drawback.
All right. Sarah, could you read number 5, please?
Replace bad thought with a good one. Failure with accomplishment.
Very good. Okay. So we are going to talk about the very first one. All right. One of it, there is any unwholesome thought or vitaka. First step is try to repel it. You clench the teeth, subdue that thought, and beat down that evil. Okay. So how do you call it? What do you see in the picture? What's the idiom for this? Anyone? Macy? Yes, Yuri? Grab a bull by its horn. Whenever there is any problem in life, you will have a lot of problems in life. That's the human nature. Now, one way to handle it, you just face it. All right? Grab the bull by the horn, meaning you face it. Right? So you just face that thought and drive out. Okay? Now, we're going to look at a clip. And again, also, we have looked at this clip before, but we're going to look at it again because it applies here very good. You just handle that negative thought.
Dr. Switzer?
Yes, come in. I'm just washing my hands.
I'm Catherine Bigman. Janet Carlisle referred me.
Oh, yes. Still being buried alive in a box.
Yes, that's me. Should I lay down?
Oh, no, we don't do that anymore. Just have a seat. And let me tell you a bit about our billing. I charge $5 for the first 5 minutes, and then absolutely nothing after that. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Too good to be true, as a matter of fact.
Well, I can almost guarantee you that our session won't last the full 5 minutes. Now, we don't do any insurance billing, so you would either have to pay in cash or by check.
Wow, okay.
And I don't make change.
All right.
And go.
Go.
Well, tell me about the problem that you wish to address.
Oh, okay. Well, I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. I start thinking about being buried alive and I begin to panic.
Has anyone ever tried to bury you alive in a box?
No, but truly thinking about it does make my life horrible. I mean, I can't go through tunnels or be in an elevator or in a house, anything boxy.
So what you're saying is you're claustrophobic.
Yes, that's it.
All right, well, let's go, Catherine. I'm going to say 2 words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life.
Well, shall I write them down?
Well, if it makes you comfortable, it's just 2 words. We find most people can remember them.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, here they are.
Stop it! I'm sorry?
Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, N-O-P, new word, I-T.
So what are you saying?
You know, it's funny. I say two simple words, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who say exactly the same thing you're saying. I mean, this is not Yiddish, Catherine. This is English. Stop it.
So I should just stop it.
There you go. I mean, you don't want to go through life being scared of being buried alive in a box, do you? I mean, that sounds frightening.
It is.
Then stop it.
I can't. I mean, it's been with me since childhood.
No, we don't go there. Just stop it.
So I should just stop being afraid of being buried alive in a box.
You got it. Good girl. Well, it's only been 3 minutes, so that will be $3.
Actually, I only have a 5, so
Well, I don't make change.
then I guess I'll take the full 5 minutes.
Fine. All right. Well, what other problems would you like to address?
I'm bulimic. I stick my fingers down my throat.
Stop it! What are you, a nut of some kind? Don't do that.
But I'm compelled to. My mom used to call me fatty.
No, we don't go there.
But I've been having this dream.
No, we don't go there either.
But my horoscope did say...
We definitely don't go there. Just stop it. What else?
Well, I have self-destructive relationships with men.
Stop it! You want to be with a man, don't you?
Yes.
Well, then stop it. Don't be such a big baby.
I wash my hands a lot.
That's all right.
It is?
I wash my hands all the time. There's a lot of germs out there. Yeah, don't worry about that one.
I'm afraid to drive.
Well, stop it! How are you going to get around? Get in the car and drive, you kook. Stop it!
You stop it! You stop it!
What's the problem, Catherine?
I don't like this. I don't like this therapy at all. You're just telling me to stop it.
And you don't like that?
No, I don't.
So you think we're moving too fast? Is that it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right, then let me give you 10 words that I think will clear everything up for you. You want to get a pad and a pencil for this one?
All right.
Are you ready? All right, here are the 10 words. Stop it or I'll bury you alive in a box!
All right. So, of course, this is a little hilarious and a little extreme, but it does happen and it does work for certain intrusive thoughts. All right. So the first step for you to do is tell yourself to stop it. Right. So
Needle and stitch.
but sometimes you try your best, but things don't work out the way you want them to. Right? So, because sometimes things are not that easy. Things that are stuck in your mind, like imprinting. Okay? Or someone said something really bad to you. Just keeps on coming to you. Right? Sometimes it starts with something very sweet. Okay? Let's say you got a boyfriend or girlfriend. So it could be that person, that girl or the boy calling your name or saying, I love you. Now, After a while, they leave you. But that word, even though initially is positive, now it just doesn't get out of your mind to a point that you can't even focus on your study. You can read. You can do your homework. You're late. You used to get an A, now your grades are lower. Now that initially started with positive, then things change. Now you're heartbroken. Now that positive things that you had now become negative to you because you just can't focus on your daily activities. You may be sleeping more than you want or you need, or you're sleeping all the time for no reason. And that imprinting, initially positive, become negative, and you repel it. You try to stop it. But things are not that simple in life. And it doesn't work. Okay? Then what does Buddha say? When the first one, repel, doesn't work. Now it goes to number 2. You did read that, please? All right. All right, so the number 1 fails. Number 1 does not work for you, right? Now, what Buddha said, number 2 is refrain, meaning neglect and forget about it. But how? Making your mind and body occupied with wholesome and busy work. Now, and busy in a sense, meaning that just to get rid of one problem, you don't invent another 2 problems. Okay, that's what it means by I'm busy, right? You're occupied with something, but just because a boyfriend or girlfriend leaves you, you don't find another one because you're going to get another problem, or you just don't go drink alcohol or do drugs, right? So that if you do that, that will be a busy work, right? You are digging more and more problem. Okay, so what does Buddha mean by busy work or wholesome work? Wholesome work will be even better, right? But if we're not talking about spiritual and Buddhism stuff, because we're talking about our daily activity, now we need to focus on busy work. What does it mean by busy work? All right, so let's look at a few things. Okay, so 1, you feeling depressed, down and out. You gotta go out there and do things. Okay, so let's start with this one. Anybody know what this movie is and who is this guy? Okay, this is Forrest Gump. All right, and it's a very famous movie. I love it. Actually, when I was young, I bought the movie. It was very expensive, but I liked so much that I bought the movie. Now, in this movie, so he had a mental imprint. Now, Forrest Gump in this movie is a little bit not that educated guy. He is a little bit autistic and even a little bit mentally retarded. All right. So now, when he was young, there were a bunch of other people or kids trying to abuse him or trying to torture him, bully him. Then the girl that he likes told him to run. Said, run, Forrest, run. So whenever he is stressed, what he hears in his mind is to run. So at one point, he ran the whole country, the whole United States, across the whole United States. And because he keeps running, people start following him. There are thousands of people running with him. So the media the whole country is very, very surprised and very interested in him. So the media follow him and asks, so Forrest, why are you running across the country? Are you running for the good cause? Are you running for the homeless? Are you running for the people for poor? Are you running for the kids that needs? So he said, I ran because I just felt like running. Now, my point here is, whenever you have that kind of negative thoughts or certain negative energy in you, sometimes just go out there and do some physical exercise of your choice. It could be running. All right. Now, this one, I'm sure all of you know this. This bluefish, what's her name? Dory, right? So now, again, the same thing. Dory is not too bright and she doesn't think too long, right? So all she focuses, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. If you recall that movie, right? Even though she is not a very bright fish, but certain things helps, right? So the same thing if you are the one who loves swimming. Whenever there's a negative thoughts, you just don't feel like doing anything because that negative thoughts is coming to you. You know it's negative, you know you got to stop that, but you just can't stop it. Okay, what do? Go out there and swim. Right? Now, for me, I was like this guy. Of course, I had some negative thoughts when I was young. Well, I was high school, college. Whenever I was stressed, what do? I like biking. I take out my bike and bike the whole town. Yes, I was back home in Rangoon. I bike the whole big city. I bike from home to the city. That takes about at least an hour and a half. Then I bike all the way across the town to the other end where my medical school was. That takes another like 2 hours coming back home. So that takes about 5 hours of biking. So some of you might like biking. Okay. Now, some of you might like just going out to the nature, right? Some of you have been to this place. I love Yosemite, right? Whenever I'm stressed, when I used to live in Lodi, and whenever I'm off, I used to go to Yosemite because I love it. Okay. The nature takes my stress away. All right. I'll go into a temple, go into a pagoda. All right. In this country, it's hard, but in Burma, you can go to Shwedagon Pagoda, you can go to Golden Rock Pagoda, right? And even better, sometimes you can do some community service. You can go to the temple and cleanse the temple, right? You can meet your friends, do that service, make you feel good. All right. So that's another way of handling to get rid of that intrusive negative thoughts. Now, how many of you try any of this or something similar whenever you have some negative energy in you, or whenever you feel bored, or whenever you feel like you're down and out? Raise your hand. All right, go ahead, Thomas.
I just went on my PC and started playing games.
Okay, all right. Okay. What about Williams?
I also play games, but at times I also take a walk around the house.
Okay.
Like taking casual walks.
Very good. Very good. Zach?
I first try to calm myself down, but I don't play video games after that because I feel like it could make me more stressful. So then I just go on to my bed and just lie there until I feel better.
Very good. Thank you, Dad. So playing games, actually, it will be considered a busy walk. right? So because you're stressed, when you say, if you're talking about the computer games or games on the phone, now that actually gives you to have more negative thoughts, right? But if you're talking about playing board games, card games, those are okay. But playing just another games that you're going to kill someone or you're going to get busy, that is not considered healthy. Okay. So when we talk about go out there, do something, you see, this, none of this include inside the house. Okay. Recommendation is go outside the house and do something, right? That could be just jogging, walking around, right? Strolling around your house like Williams does. Okay. Or running, swimming, biking, going to the nature, volunteering for the community, for the temple, or helping your parents out. So that sometimes will take away your stress and that negative thought. And another thing is that if you are physically tired, you fall right to sleep after you're dirt tired. So whenever I have huge stress, I bike like crazy. By the time I get back home, I am pretty much half dead. So I eat, and then I go to bed, and before my head touches the pillow, I am in deep sleep. And when I wake up, I feel so great. That negative thoughts most of the times is gone. Okay. So, but again, for you, it could not be biking. It could be swimming. It could be running. It could be community service. It could be going to the temple. It could be going out in the nature. It could be anything. It could be something outside of this. But try to do something outside the house, not inside the house. All right? Okay. So again, sometimes for some people, this won't work either. Right? So then we will continue the rest next week. Right? We're going to pause here tonight. Thank you for joining us.